Take your seats. I believe in beginning in a timely fashion because we all have family. We all have obligation. And so I want to be respectful of your time. So I've met many of you, whether it be in a high school where I actually walk around and talk with you, whether it be on the field, whether it be at the track and field championships or the basketball games or the Homewood Dogs field or what have you. I've met many of you. And I just appreciate the time that you're giving me this afternoon to talk with you. Heard all kinds of stuff about why this meeting was called. All kinds of stuff. You know, quite frankly, this meeting is long overdue. It's long overdue because for 2.5 years, I've been in the district and I've heard an awful lot of things that have been unsettling to me because, truthfully, I love sports. I am a coach, and I'm talking about that in a second. But I tell you that the things that I've heard are disconcerting for me. And so because of those things that I've actually heard, I said, let me bring the men and women in the district together who are professionals to actually have a conversation. To begin the conversation that will take long beyond this meeting. A conversation that will last far beyond this meeting because, truthfully, we have an awful lot of work to do. Because business as usual, business the way that we've conducted things in the past, business the way that we have thought about things, truthfully, is no longer an acceptable way of working and doing things. So I'm going to go quickly through the PowerPoint that I actually gave you. And then we're going to actually have about 20 minutes of question and answer because this is just the beginning of the conversation that I want to have with folks here in the district. So, this meeting. I want to introduce the path upon which we will walk the next few years in athletics in the district. I'm going to introduce that path because people say all the time, oh, we didn't know. We didn't have a clue. So I'm going to bring you in at the first, not the last, regarding what the next few years will look like. We're going to talk about the role of coaches and the role that you play as we move forward. We're going to discuss next steps. So who am I? My official title, and I'm not going to use a microphone because microphones, as we all know, gives kids and adults license to have a conversation. So I want everybody to sort of be in conversation with me because I'm going to actually open up the floor and allow you to converse with me towards the end of this conversation that we're having today. So my official title is Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Schools. In that role, I supervise all the 6 to 12 schools and all the 9 to 12 schools. And I have under my auspices a lot of the work around reform that's going on in the Hill District and in the Homewood area. I'm also the Title IX Compliance Officer for the district. A title that I did not anticipate nor want, but was given to me by our Title IX officer speaking with our Deputy Superintendent about many of the issues that were taking place in the district. So I am now the Title IX Compliance Officer for the district. My unofficial role. I'm a teacher, a coach, and administrator. I've coached basketball at the middle school level. I was an assistant coach of football at the high school level. I was the head varsity track coach at 2 schools in Michigan. And in my last role as principal, I literally left my office every day at 3:15 to coach track in the spring every day as a volunteer for the head track coach in the building because I love track and field that much. So every spring, March the 8th through June the 15th and the state finals in Michigan, I was a track coach as well as the principal of a high school. So I love sports because sports actually is an outlet, one of those groups in schools that actually is a positive producer of children in their growth and development. I know that. Just like in many schools, you've got your musicians. In some schools, you've got your scientists. In other schools, you've got your artists, your athletes, your musicians. But athletes are a huge part of high schools and middle schools. In fact, in my first high school position as principal, the first meeting I held was with the varsity football team at Highland Park High School. The very first meeting that I had was with the football team. Because the football team at Highland Park High School meant everything. I met with the football team before I met with the faculty. Because the building was out of control. And I knew that the one thing in the building that everybody in Highland Park, Michigan wanted to rally around was football. So I met with the football team and I introduced myself. And the first thing that one of the brothers said to me was, "You know what, you're a white boy dipped in chocolate." I was like, "What does that mean?" He said, "You speak like a white boy." I was like, "What does that mean?" He said, "You speak like a white boy. You mean you don't speak like folk from the hood. You don't speak like us." I was happy that he said that to me because at least I was able to then say, well, I speak standard English. I actually speak the language of cash, you know, the way that commerce works. And I realized soon thereafter that that was a way to get into these kids who were all bigger than me, physical specimens, but ran the building in the negative light in the year prior to my being there. So that was my first meeting with anybody at Highland Park High School. And I tell you, it changed the entire tenor of what happened in that building for the year because I recognized the value of sports in that building. So why are we here today? Well, we got to begin the conversation about the future of sports in Pittsburgh. And the first place to begin, of course, is with the coaches who actually deal with the youth in the Pittsburgh public schools. I cannot sit at 341 South Belfield room 124 and say, this I dub to be the new way that we do sports in Pittsburgh. I can't do that. I can't do that at all. And so what I want to happen is this. I want to happen as a result of this conversation that we're actually having for us to think about the role of coaches, the role of faculty managers, the role of the teachers, the role of principals, teachers is not up there, sorry, role of students and administrators. I want to think about all those roles as we begin this conversation because everybody has a part to play. So, as I said before, coaching is crucial to individual development in a team context. Everything in the world now is about team. Whether it be you are on a team at GM to design a car, whether you're on a team of attorneys to figure out a motion that goes on in the workplace, whether or not you are a business team putting together a plan of action to communicate what the next steps are in life. So individual development as a part of the team is crucial to the work that we're doing with kids. It's not just another add-on. It is an essential part of any public school system to have a strong athletic team concept. It is not an add-on. It is not something that just should be cut because the budget is crunched. It is an essential component because everything that we do in the workplace now is built around teams. And people say, well, you're a track coach. Track is not a track team, really. Track is a team sport. It's a team sport built around individual accomplishments. And as the team goes, as each individual goes in each of their individual events, so goes the team. And so we talked about that pretty clearly. But also, it prepares all of our kids for higher education because, once again, you got group projects in college. It prepares our kids for the workplace, prepares our kids for life and relationships with peers and with their children and with our spouses even. Because, truthfully, it is about relating to people in a construct that may not be native to you. So you're learning a new skill, in many cases, and relating to people that you don't know to accomplish a common objective. That's what an athletic team is. You're learning a new skill, simultaneously relating to new people while you're developing a relationship and trying to get towards a common goal. So everyone in this room knows that. That's no puzzle. question becomes, how do we make our work impact kids? So coaches have many roles in buildings. When I was the coach at UD Jesuit High School, every child that acted a fool was sent to my room if he was on my track team. When I became the coach at Berkeley High School, when I was principal, teachers would send kids not to my office for punishment because I was their coach. Lopez is going to handle you on the track. Not just to send him there just so that he could truly get punished or expelled, but Lopez is going to handle you in a productive way. Teachers began to use me like that even though I was the principal of the school. Because I had relationships with kids. I was a role model, I was a mentor, I was one who built skills. I was also a disciplinarian and I was a confidant. Learned more about kids than I even wanted to know. As a coach, everybody in the room can nod your head because you learn stuff about kids that you just really don't want to know. And they tell you things and you're like, why did you tell me that? Because that's making me uncomfortable, I got to do something with it. Because kids trust the adults who are their coaches in real ways, especially when they don't have an adult in their life. Again, the adult of last resort. Especially when they don't have an adult in their life who actually can direct and guide them the way that they need to be guided in order for them to be productive human beings. So there are so many things that coaches do, and thus you're here. So one thing that we do is we believe when nobody else does. When I had that god-awful middle school football team that probably could not do anything but for the fact that they came every day and we taught them what we could teach them, but they didn't know a whole lot. I had to believe in them even when we were getting beaten 47-7. In fact, when we scored our first touchdown 3 games into the season, that was like the celebration because we got our behind spanked all the time. But at no point could I show them that I didn't believe in them because they would stop coming. I had to believe in them when they didn't. There wasn't enough money in the world to actually put in the amount of time that I put in as a coach. In fact, many days I was up putting track lineups up at midnight when I had to be at school the next day to be a principal, to play that role. But I was putting track lineups up together for the track team of 150 kids to make sure that everybody had the right ran in the right race, could maximize their potential and truly understand what was going on. There's only this commitment that gets buy-in from athletes. So we need to understand that it is not just a job about remuneration, and most of you know that because of what the work you put in. But let me tell you something about compromising professionalism. So my 8th grade basketball team, I was 21 years old, coaching in New York, upstate New York, and the officials were cheating, I believe. I mean, they were flat cheating on my team. Flat cheating. I had the 2 best guards in the county, Eric Beck and Robbie Glickman, and I had the tallest 8th grader in the county, and Damon Singletary, who was 6'1" in the 8th grade. We were spanking kids on this basketball team by 25, 30 points. I would actually have to play 1 guard at a time because we were wearing kids out. It was pretty unfair. And so about the 3rd quarter of this game, there was an intentional foul called against Damon Singletary because they thought he threw an elbow. That was the 5th in a series of about 5 bad calls in about 3 minutes because we were spanking this team in the county. I literally went over to the bench, picked up all of my bags, told everybody, let's go, and walked out of the game. We got on the bus and left. I'm like, I'm righteous. My kids are going to be all right because I fought for them. What did they do to the rest of our practices after that? I learned a really tough lesson about toughing it out when it was supposed to be tough. And even if there was this thing called cheating, and we were being discriminated against, and I had the tallest, and I had the fastest, and the one that could do the layups and shoot threes. All of that didn't matter because they looked at me differently from that point forward. It wasn't that I was fighting for them, I was skirting the rules. I was skirting the rules. So I actually lost confidence in my team, from my teammates, my team members, as opposed to the other day. And I'm telling you, I picked up the bags and I walked out. We were in the wind. But I realized pretty quickly that I compromised professionalism. I compromised my professionalism. I compromised the way that I treated kids. I'd shown them the wrong thing. Because in life, things are not always fair, to be quite honest. And I had not quite mastered that at the age of 21. I was like, this is not right. My kids are being discriminated against. I'm done. That wasn't the way to handle it. So when these things occur, your professionalism is compromised as a coach. I learned about all those things, quite frankly. For example, my failure to prepare athletes for skills got a couple of my 8th grade football players hurt because I didn't run them as hard, didn't prepare them as hard as I should have, wasn't as attentive as I should have been to their development and skills, trying to get them to do things beyond their level because I had not studied enough to learn enough to teach these young men how to do the work. Cancellation of practices. Oh, I got to get with my girl. What happens when I start canceling one practice a week? The kids stop coming. Again, compromising professionalism. Appearance of impropriety. Talking with folk and on teammates, on teams of players of other teams, talking to them about coming, because as far as I was concerned, at the middle school level in the county of Westchester, I could talk to anybody I wanted to talk to. They weren't going to high school yet. But that was not right because the kids could see that what I was doing, and I was favoring other folk over other folk. Comments regarding the inability of female athletes. Thus, the Title IX report, gentlemen and ladies in this room. I need you to know that we are under watch by the Girls and Women's Foundation here because of the way that we treat women's athletics in the Pittsburgh public schools. And that Title IX report is this thick. Talks about our facilities, talks about our inequities. The board will get this report on April the 7th. But it is not good. It's not favorable. Failure to handle misconduct, student misconduct, or to give some athletes a pass. When you give an athlete a pass, which I did with my track star, Robert Turpin. He was a soccer star. I wanted him to run for me. One of the fastest guys that I've ever actually seen run. Literally one of the fastest. He never had tap potential. I would give him a pass. You could go to soccer practice with your team because team soccer is in the spring in Pittsburgh, in Michigan. So instead of coming to track practice every day, I said, oh, Rob, you can go to your soccer practice as opposed to coming to our practice and just show up. State finals, kid you not, 4x1. The other 3 members of the team and the 4th one sitting next to me who had gotten us to the state finals, I set number 3 down because Rob Turpin is as fast as lightning. Timing for the other 4 had worked all year long. Colin Killeen comes down the backstretch, leg number 2. Rob Turpin takes off too quick. No stick exchange. Because I didn't go with the team that was there. I'm talking about me. I'm not talking about anybody in the room. I'm talking about me and the lessons that I learned as a coach. Because I played favoritism. Never did it again after that. Because truthfully, the young man who was sitting next to me should have been that 3rd leg. Because I gave Robert a pass. So we've got to think about that stuff with grades, with disciplinary behavior with coaches cussing you out in the locker room. F you, coach, I ain't gonna do that. Or I'm not coming today, or what have you. You've got to be clear that every other child on that team is actually watching what and how you handle it. Because if you give one child this hand, the other one's gonna want it too, or they're gonna try to get it in another way. So, these are the issues that I've actually dealt with this year and a half that I've heard about. You can read them for yourself. These are all a reflection of coaching and a reflection of the way that we handle business. These are all a reflection of the way that we conduct business every day. There is no that ain't me, my name ain't up there. I know I said ain't. There's none of that. It's about how we handle issues every day. The one at the bottom is a 2-year running thing. Last year, Alderdice did something. This year, Perry did something. It's a running thing. The only people that can stand in the gap are the coaches and the adults. That's the only people that can stand in the gap. Are the coaches. When something happens on your squad, you should be a partner with your principal, not, oh, I'm not going to let the principal know what happened until it hits the newspapers. That is not what we should be doing. Because truthfully, what happens is this. The kids see, oh, the adult's giving me a pass on this. So what happens in the building when something happens with that child? They're going to expect the principal to give them a pass as well. This is all about professionalism and the way we treat one another and the way we treat kids. Title IX issues, size of student squads. We have some of the smallest squads in the city that I've ever seen, quite frankly. Because what happens is this. When there's no rally around the adult, because coaches are Pied Pipers. Coaches are Pied Pipers. The reason I had 150 athletes is because I beat the trees. I would tell kids, you're going to run even if they didn't want to run. I would go to the basketball coach and say, I see him on the court. He's going to run for me. She's going to run for me. He's going to run for me. I beat the trees. And I said, this is what you will do. Because the adults control what kids do. And kids want the adults to control. So when people would show up to track practice, I literally had it scripted out. What was going to happen from 3:15 to 4:45, from the warm-up to the end, with 150 children in mind about the workouts. Distance runners, those who threw weights, those who were the sprinter stars, those who leaped, those who high jumped, those who, whatever was, I had to have it scripted out. But every day, 150 kids from 3:15 to 4:30, 4:45 knew what was up and knew what they were supposed to do, because that's my obligation. And I recruited them. I recruited them because I was passionate about it. So kids will follow you anywhere if you believe in them. Everyone in this room knows that. So we've got to get that together. The other thing is parent engagement. I've been told twice this year, I ain't got to talk to that parent. I'm not required to. Parent engagement is nasty stuff. Because everybody thinks that their child is the next Michael Jordan. Everybody thinks that their next child is the next Ben Roethlisberger. Everybody believes that their child is going to play professional sports and they are going to get me out of the hood. You ain't playing my kid. What's wrong with you? You don't know what coaching is. Everybody believes they can do your job better than you. That's the bottom line. Truth of the matter is that we've got an obligation to prepare kids to meet their fullest potential no matter who they are. And we also have the obligation to engage parents even when it's an uncomfortable conversation. You know what my favorite phrase was when I was actually a track coach? The watch don't lie. That was my favorite phrase. Why aren't you running in for points? The watch don't lie. I'm not going to run him for points if he runs a 13-100. Not going to do it. I will run him in a race where he won't get skunked, but I'm not going to run her because I'm not going to run him there or her there. The watch does not lie. Well, Lopez, I'll just take him out to school. Which form do you want? You have to stand on principle and not on the fact that this kid can do whatever for you. Community perception. People know this, I'm not speaking out of school. The sports in the city schools suffers from a reputation for not preparing our kids to get on the big stage. Not preparing our kids to be on the big stage. We compete well amongst ourselves. We've got to change that in the way that we conduct business amongst ourselves and what we require of kids. And it may take a couple years for kids to literally get that through their heads that, oh, it's different now. I'm not going to be able to come to practice when I want to come to practice to do what I want to do. It may take a minute, but I'm telling you that you will be better off getting rid of those kids right now who are going to be nothing but poison to your squads, as opposed to building that group up to become the team that could actually be pretty doggone good in competing outside of the city. That perception is there. The other thing is I need you to hear. Because of the level of conflict that we actually have at our games amongst fans and between parents and the officials, between parents and coaches, we are often not invited to big venues or uninvited to big venues. That all starts with the fact that stuff like this gets out. The fact that there was a near brawl in the center hallway at Brashear High School between two of our finest basketball teams, and then one of the basketball teams went up to Peabody on Saturday in an attempt, went up to Peabody in an attempt to actually beat down those players because they were angry. That stuff is all over the city. All over the county. We are the ones who stand in the gap with that stuff. We are the ones who stand in the gap. So, last slide. Last two slides. So, you have to think about where you are in this process. What has been your stake in this? What do you plan to do about it? What have been your positives? What have been your triumphs? Where you excel? The fact that Bobby Cligman, first before I talked about that I walked up the court with in 1988, he emailed me last week, found me on Facebook. I haven't seen that little kid since '88. That's a triumph for him. Mr. Lopez, I went to Rice University. I now have a business in New York City. That was my reward. That's my reflection. That's one of those things. I had challenges, absolutely I had challenges as a coach. I told you, I was a hothead. Still a hothead for some reason. But I was a hothead as a coach. I'm talking about me. I was a hothead. And so I knew, and I wish I had known then, more than I know now, how much my actions actually impacted the young men and women that I coached. Because truthfully, there are kids who told me things that literally saved their life because I could intervene on their behalf. Got child welfare involved for a couple of things. Found housing for a couple of things. Because that's what kids confided in me. Triumphs and challenges. What can you do to enhance those things that you know you're doing well? And what can you do to mitigate some of the negatives that you have in your own coaching career? So, our next steps. And I'm almost done. Our next steps is as a district. So last year, Mark Roosevelt, the superintendent, asked me, Derek, to engage in a conversation about what athletics in Pittsburgh will look like over the next 5 years. And I said, what does that mean? He said, I need you just to be a student of what's happening in athletics. And that's when I began to pay attention and listen to folk about issues. Because at first, I don't know if y'all remember, but I came in as this chief of high school reform thing, and I designed these 4 new schools, and that's what I thought was going to be done, and I was going to be out. And I ended up being the assistant superintendent for secondary schools, supervising those schools, And he said, Derek, I need you to pay attention. Because he knows I'm a coach. He knows I love coaching. He knows I love sports. I was sitting in front of the TV on Friday, because it was my birthday, number one, but from 12 until 7:30, only to get up to go to the bathroom because I was watching NCAA basketball. Went and made some food in the kitchen, came back and watched the games till midnight. Saturday, the same thing. Sunday, after church, same thing. He knows me. He knows what I love to do. So what we're trying to do, to be quite honest, and everyone thought, oh, he's going to beat us upside the head and they tell us what we ain't, what we are. I'm actually calling you together to ask you that. To be quite honest. Because I don't know what you know. I don't have a clue about some of the issues that you may be dealing with, depending upon what school you are, because Carey is different from Bashir, is different from Langley, is different from Obama Middle School, is different from da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. The issues are different in each space. So, in about a month, we're going to have a study after the Colorado Report is given to the board. We're going to have a study of coaches, parents, teachers, faculty members, led by John Bob, who is the principal here at Bashir, and Mike Gabbard, who is our director of athletics. And we're going to actually have members. I'm going to be on the committee, but I'm not going to chair the committee. I'm going to sit, and I'm going to be a working member of the committee. I'm going to sit. I'm not going to direct. I'm going to sit and listen, because I don't know enough to tell you what to do. But John and Mike are going to co-chair this committee. And on this committee, we're going to have central office folk, we're going to have coaches, parents, and students to talk about the future of Pittsburgh athletics. Truthfully, to talk about it in a way that will endure past all of us. Tough questions will be asked. Should there be cooperative agreements between some schools because the schools are too small? Should there be an inter-the-city league and therefore join the PAI? Should there be? These are all questions that are there. I need you to know, in truth, that we are going to ask those hard questions, but I need your assistance in this work. John and Mike need your assistance in this work. Because you know how people tune into WIIFM? You know what that station is, right? What's in it for me? WIIFM. I need you all to be tuned in to WIIFM. So that you don't say, this was done to me, as opposed to collaboratively with me. This was done to me. Because too often we hear in central office, Mr. Rodriguez, are you videotaping? Good. I'm going to end up on the blog. All right, so too often people say, this is done to me. The truth of the matter is, we don't want to do anything to you. We actually need your help in figuring this out. So, I've spoken for 25 minutes. So, the next thing, one rule, there's only one rule. If you are tired of listening, I'm going to give you 2-3 minutes to get up and walk out so the people who actually want to stay and engage